The gun pressed cold against Oma's temple. "Sign it," Juno's voice cut through the silence of the hotel suite, sharp as broken glass. Her hands trembled over the contract, black ink bleeding into expensive paper. Beside Juno, his twin brother Taehyun watched with softer eyes, but his stillness was somehow more terrifying. Two identical faces. Two different monsters. And her father had sold her to both of them. "Please," Oma whispered, her Ghanaian accent thick with tears. "There has to be another way." Juno lowered the gun, but his fingers found her chin instead, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. "Your father borrowed 500 million won from us. He gambled it away in 3 nights. We could kill him." His thumb traced her trembling lower lip. "Or you could be smart and sign." "What exactly am I signing?" Her voice cracked. Taehyun finally moved, circling behind her chair. His breath warmed her neck as he leaned down, his lips nearly brushing her ear. 1 year of marriage. Give us an heir. Then you're free." "Marriage? To which one of you?" "Both," they said in unison. "If you've ever wondered how far you'd go for family, stay with me because this story will leave you breathless. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Trust me, you'll want to remember where you found this. Now, let's begin." Oma's pen clattered to the table. "That's insane." "That's legal," Juno interrupted, sliding another document forward. "In our world, anyway. You marry me. You marry him. You belong to us equally." His eyes darkened. "Every single part of you." The room spun. This couldn't be real. She'd come to Seoul 6 months ago to finish her graduate degree in international business, working part-time at her uncle's restaurant in Itaewon. Then her father's desperate phone call 3 days ago, his voice shaking. "I've done something terrible, Oma. They're coming for you." Now here she sat, trapped between 2 devils in expensive suits. "And if I refuse?" she asked. Taehyun's hand slid along her shoulder, deceptively gentle. "Then your father dies. Your mother dies. Your little brother, what's his name? Kofi. He dies too. We're very thorough." Tears burned hot down Oma's cheeks, but she picked up the pen. Her signature looked like a death sentence in flowing script. The moment she finished, Juno pulled her to her feet, his grip iron around her wrist. "Good girl," he murmured, and suddenly his mouth was on hers. Oma gasped against the kiss, shock freezing her in place. Juno tasted like whiskey and danger, his tongue demanding entrance, claiming her with brutal intensity. When he finally pulled back, she stumbled, only to crash into Taehyun's chest. "My turn," Taehyun whispered, and his kiss was different. Slower. Deeper. Like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth, savoring every second. His fingers tangled in her braids, gentle where his brother had been rough, and God help her, her body responded. Heat pooled low in her belly even as her mind screamed in protest. When Taehyun released her, Oma's knees buckled. Juno caught her effortlessly, lifting her into his arms. "Welcome to your new life, wife." The penthouse overlooked Gwangali Beach, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing Busan's glittering coastline. Oma stood in the master bedroom, still wearing her clothes from the hotel, feeling like a stranger in her own skin. "This is your room," Taehyun said, opening a door to reveal a space larger than her entire apartment. "Your private sanctuary. We won't enter without permission." "How generous," Oma spat, finding her voice again. "You force me into marriage but respect bedroom boundaries?" Juno leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "We're not rapists, Oma. Criminals. Yes. Killers, absolutely. But we want you willing." "I'll never be willing." "Never is a long time." Taehyun stepped closer, and she hated how her pulse quickened. "We're giving you 1 month. We'll court you properly. Take you on dates. Show you we're more than the monsters you think we are." His fingers grazed her cheek. "And if after 30 days you still can't stand us, we'll find another way." Another way to what? You need an heir. Juno's expression darkened. 3 years ago, we survived a car bombing meant to kill us. The explosion left us damaged. Doctors said we'd never father children. His jaw clenched. But we found a specialist. With the right woman, with enough trying, there's a slim chance. You're young, healthy, and frankly, his gaze raked over her body, exactly our type. So I'm a breeding experiment. You're our last hope, Taehyun corrected softly. Which makes you the most valuable person in our world. We'll protect you with our lives, Oma. We'll give you everything you could want. All we ask is a chance. Oma laughed bitterly. A chance at what? Love. You bought me like property. Then let us earn what we've bought. Juno pushed off the doorframe. 1 month, Oma. 30 days. What do you have to lose? Everything, she thought. But looking at their faces, identical yet so different, both undeniably handsome, both absolutely lethal, she wondered if she'd already lost it all the moment she signed her name. Fine, she whispered. Court me. Seduce me. Try your best. She lifted her chin defiantly. But don't expect me to fall. Juno's smile was wicked. Challenge accepted. Taehyun stepped so close she could feel his body heat. Just so we're clear, Oma, when you do fall, and you will, we're going to catch you. His mouth hovered over hers. And we're never letting go. The first morning, Oma woke to rose petals scattered across her floor leading from her bedroom door to the main living area. She followed them in her silk pajamas, heart hammering, and found Taehyun in the kitchen cooking breakfast. He'd rolled up his sleeves, revealing tattooed forearms she hadn't noticed before, intricate dragons winding up to his elbows. You cook? She asked, suspicion lacing every word. My mother taught me before she died. He plated perfectly golden hodyeok, the sweet Korean pancakes glistening. I know you've been in Seoul 6 months. Thought you might miss home, so I made watche too. Oma froze. The Ghanaian rice and beans dish sat steaming in a bowl, looking exactly like her grandmother used to make. How did you? I called your mother last night. Taehyun set the food on the breakfast bar. Asked her for the recipe. She was surprisingly helpful once I promised we'd keep you safe. You spoke to my mother? Anger and longing twisted in Oma's chest. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're married now. That we'll treat you like the queen you are. He moved around the counter, stopping just inches away. She said to tell you she's sorry. And that she knows you're strong enough to survive anything. Tears threatened, but Oma blinked them back. She doesn't know what you are. She knows enough. Taehyun's hand cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheekbone. Eat. Oma. Keep your strength up. You'll need it. Before she could respond, Juno appeared from the hallway wearing workout clothes, sweat glistening on his neck. Ready for training? Training. Oma looked between them. I'm not training for anything. Juno's smile was predatory. You're a target now. Every rival family in Busouson will want to use you against us. So you're learning to fight. He tossed her workout clothes. Change. We start in 10 minutes. The private gym occupied the entire lower floor of the building. Juno circled her like a shark, correcting her stance, adjusting her hips with hands that lingered too long. When he demonstrated a defensive move, his body pressed against her back, his arms guiding hers through the motion. Feel that. His voice rumbled against her ear. You're stronger than you think. You just need to believe it. They practiced for 2 hours until Oma's muscles screamed. When she finally landed a successful hit to his padded chest, Juno caught her wrist and pulled her flush against him. Good girl, he murmured and kissed her hard. This time Oma didn't freeze. She kissed him back with equal ferocity, channeling all her anger and confusion into the press of her lips. Juno groaned, his hands sliding down to grip her waist, and for a moment she forgot why she was supposed to hate this. Then reality crashed back. She shoved him away, breathing hard. Don't. You kissed me back, Juno pointed out, eyes gleaming with victory. Mistake. Was it? He stepped closer again. Your body knows what it wants, Oma. Your mind just hasn't caught up yet. That night, Taehyun took her to his restaurant in Haeundae, closed to the public just for them. He'd arranged for a private chef to prepare both Korean and Ghanaian fusion dishes, each course more elaborate than the last. Why are you doing this? Oma asked, sipping wine that probably cost more than her semester's tuition. Because you deserve to be courted properly. Taehyun reached across the table, lacing his fingers with hers. I know how this started. I know you hate us. But I need you to understand, we didn't choose this life. We were born into it. Our father ran the Busan underworld before us. When he died, we inherited everything, including all his enemies. That car bomb, Oma said quietly. Who did it? The Choi family. They wanted our territory. His grip tightened. We burned their empire to ashes. Every single one of them. Except we couldn't burn away what they took from us, our ability to have a family. His dark eyes met hers. Until you don't even know me. So let me. Taehyun stood, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. Music began playing, a slow, sensual melody. Dance with me. Oma melted against him despite herself. His hand splayed across the small of her back, holding her close as they swayed. Taehyun was all controlled power, leading her effortlessly across the empty restaurant floor. You're beautiful, he whispered against her temple. Smart. Fierce. Everything we never knew we needed. You're insane, she whispered back, but her hands clutched his shoulders. Maybe. His lips brushed her forehead. But I'm insane about you. When the song ended, he kissed her, and this time Oma didn't pull away. She opened for him, let him explore her mouth with devastating slowness, felt herself drowning in sensations she had no business feeling. Taehyun kissed like he had all the time in the world, like she was something precious worth savoring. By the time they returned to the penthouse, Oma's resolve was cracking. She retreated to her room, locked the door, and tried to remember why falling for her captors would be the worst mistake of her life. But alone in the dark, all she could think about was Juno's fierce intensity and Taehyun's tender devotion. Two sides of the same coin, both dangerously addictive. A knock interrupted her thoughts. When she opened the door, both twins stood there in sleeping clothes, looking unfairly attractive. We have a rule, Juno said. Every night before bed, we check on you. Make sure you're safe. I'm fine, Oma managed. Taehyun's eyes searched her face. Are you? Really? No. She wasn't fine. She was terrified and confused and somehow, impossibly, starting to feel things she shouldn't. But admitting that felt like surrender. Good night, she said instead, moving to close the door. Juno stopped it with his hand. Oma, wait. He stepped closer, and suddenly both twins were in her space, overwhelming her senses. We know this is hard. We know you're scared. But we meant what we said. We'll protect you. With our lives. Why should I believe you? Because, Taehyun said, his hand finding hers in the darkness. You're already ours. And we protect what's ours. Week 2 began with Juno waking her before dawn. Get dressed. Something warm. They drove to Haedong Yeonggangsa Temple as the sun rose over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The ancient Buddhist temple perched on cliff edges, waves crashing against rocks below. Juno led her through the grounds in silence until they reached a quiet overlook. This is where Taehyun and I came the night after the bombing, he said quietly. We were wrapped in bandages, barely able to walk. The doctors had just told us we'd never have children, never have a legacy. Everything our father built would die with us. He turned to face her, vulnerability flickering across his usually hard features. I prayed for the first time in my life. Asked for a miracle. Asked for hope. And Oma's voice was barely a whisper. And 6 months later, your father walked into our casino. Juno's hand cupped her face, his touch achingly gentle. I don't believe in coincidences, Oma. You were meant to be ours. That's not fate. That's my father's gambling addiction. Maybe. Or maybe the universe has a twisted sense of humor. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. I'm not good with words like Taehyun. I can't cook you breakfast or dance with you. But I can promise you this. I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. I will tear apart this entire city if it means keeping you safe. And when you finally stop fighting what's between us, I will worship every inch of your body until you forget your own name. Heat flooded through Oma. Juno. His mouth crashed into hers, swallowing her protest. This kiss was different from the others. Deeper, more desperate, like he was pouring everything he couldn't say into the press of his lips. Oma's hands fisted in his jacket, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed that this was wrong, wrong, wrong. But God, it felt so right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Juno rested his forehead against hers again. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I'm imagining it. Oma couldn't. Because she did feel it, this magnetic pull between them, this chemistry that defied logic and morality. This doesn't change anything, she whispered. Liar. That evening, both twins took her to an underground fight club in Siamayan. The crowd roared as two fighters brutalized each other in a cage while money changed hands around them. Oma felt sick watching the violence until Taehyun leaned close. This is our world, Oma. Blood and money and power. We need you to understand what you're part of now. A commotion erupted near the bar. A drunk man had grabbed a waitress, his hands groping inappropriately. Before Oma could process it, Juno was moving. He crossed the space in seconds, grabbed the man by his throat, and slammed him against the wall. Apologize, Juno growled. The man spat in his face. Wrong move. What happened next was swift and brutal. Juno broke the man's nose with one punch, his ribs with another. The crowd went silent, watching their boss defend a random employee with terrifying efficiency. When the man crumpled to the floor, Juno turned to the waitress. Are you hurt? She shook her head, tears streaming. Take the rest of the night off. Paid. Juno's voice softened. And if anyone else touches you without permission, you come find me. Understand? The waitress nodded and fled. Juno returned to Oma and Taehyun as if nothing had happened, blood still on his knuckles. You see, Taehyun said quietly. We're monsters to our enemies. But to those under our protection. He took Oma's hand. We'd move heaven and hell. Later in the penthouse, Oma couldn't sleep. She found Taehyun on the balcony, smoking a cigarette and staring at the diamond bridge lights reflecting on the water. Can't sleep either? He asked without turning. She joined him at the railing. I keep thinking about what you said. About this being your world. About understanding what I'm part of. Having second thoughts. I'm having all the thoughts. Oma laughed bitterly. A month ago, my biggest worry was passing my economics final. Now I'm married to two Mafia bosses who somehow make me feel safe and terrified at the same time. Taehyun stubbed out his cigarette and pulled her into his arms. You want to know what terrifies me? The idea of losing you before we've even had a chance. The thought that you'll spend this whole year hating us, counting down the days until you're free. His hand slid into her braids, tilting her face up. I'm falling for you, Oma. Juno is too, though he'd rather die than admit it. And I know it's too soon, I know it's crazy, but I can't help it. Taehyun, she breathed, her resolve crumbling. Tell me to stop, he whispered against her lips. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk away right now. Oma should have told him to stop. Should have pushed him away and locked herself in her room. Instead, she kissed him with everything she'd been holding back for 2 weeks. Taehyun groaned, his arms tightening around her waist as he deepened the kiss, backing her against the glass railing. His hands roamed her body over her silk nightgown, mapping every curve, and Oma arched into his touch. When his lips left hers to trail down her neck, she gasped, her fingers tangling in his hair. "Say yes," Taehyun murmured against her throat. "Say you want this. Want us." Before she could answer, the balcony door opened. Juno stood there, his expression unreadable as he took in the scene. His brother's hands on their wife, her obvious arousal, the charged air between them. "Don't stop on my account," Juno said, his voice rough with desire. He crossed to them, positioning himself behind Oma so she was trapped between both twins. "We agreed to share, remember?" Oma's breath hitched as Juno's hands settled on her hips, his lips finding the other side of her neck. Taehyun continued his assault on her senses from the front, and she was drowning in sensation, in the heat of two bodies pressed against hers, in the reality of wanting both of them with equal desperation. "Please," she whimpered, though she couldn't have said what she was begging for. "Inside," Juno commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Now." They moved as one into the penthouse, a tangle of desperate hands and hungry mouths. Taehyun lifted Oma effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her toward the master bedroom. Juno followed, closing the door behind them with a decisive click. "Last chance," Taehyun said, setting her gently on the massive bed. "Tell us to stop, and we will." Oma looked between them, these two dangerous, beautiful men who'd stolen her life and somehow given her a new one. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "I don't want you to stop," she whispered. "I want everything." What followed was a night of passion that shattered every wall she'd built. They worshipped her body with reverent touches, learning every sound she made, every place that made her gasp. Juno was fierce and demanding, while Taehyun was tender and thorough, and together they created a symphony of pleasure that left Oma trembling and breathless. Afterward, she lay between them, their bodies tangled in silk sheets, and for the first time since signing that contract, she felt safe. Juno's arm draped possessively across her waist while Taehyun's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. "No regrets?" Juno asked quietly. "Only that I waited 2 weeks," Oma admitted. Taehyun laughed softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "We have time to make up for it." The next 3 months transformed Oma completely. She trained daily with Juno, her body becoming lean and strong, her reflexes sharp. She attended business meetings with Taehyun, learning the intricate web of alliances and territories that made up Buson's underworld. And at night, she lost herself in the arms of both men, discovering that her heart was large enough to love them both completely. But not everyone was happy about the arrangement. At a family summit in Siamayan, Park Mina, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who controlled the eastern docks, studied Oma with open disdain. "So this is the African girl who has our princes wrapped around her finger. Is there a problem?" Oma asked calmly, though her pulse quickened. "Many problems. You're an outsider. You don't understand our ways. And frankly, having one woman satisfy 2 men seems physically impossible for producing the heir they so desperately need." The room went silent. Juno's hand moved to his gun, but Oma placed her hand over his, stopping him. "You're right," Oma said, standing to face Park Mina directly. "I am an outsider. I don't know all your traditions or your history. But I know business, I know loyalty, and I know love." She stepped closer, her voice dropping dangerously. "And what happens in my bedroom with my husbands is none of your concern. Question my position again, and you'll discover exactly how much influence I have." Park Mina blinked, then slowly smiled. "Perhaps I underestimated you." She raised her glass. "To the new Mrs. Kong. May she prove as fierce as she is beautiful." The tension broke, and Juno pulled Oma into his lap, his lips at her ear. "That was incredibly hot." "Behave," she whispered back, but couldn't hide her smile. After the meeting, as they drove back to Gwangali, Taehyun received a frantic call. His expression darkened as he listened. "What is it?" Oma asked. "Your ex-boyfriend from Ghana is in Seoul." He's been asking questions about you at your uncle's restaurant. Oma's blood ran cold. Kwame. He's here. He knows about us, Juno said grimly. And he's working with the Choi family remnants. They want revenge for what we did to them 3 years ago. That night, Kwame showed up at a charity gala the twins were hosting. He cornered Oma near the coat check, his familiar face twisted with concern and anger. Oma, thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. He grabbed her hands. I know what's happened. Your father told me everything. These men forced you into marriage. But I have a plan. We can run. Tonight. I have tickets back to Accra. Oma pulled her hands away. Kwame, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. They're criminals. Oma. Murderers. How can you stand to let them touch you? Because I love them, she said simply. Kwame's face contorted. That's Stockholm Syndrome. They've brainwashed you. No, Oma's voice was steel. They've set me free. For the first time in my life, I know exactly who I am and what I want. And it's not you, Kwame. It never was. You're making a mistake. His expression hardened. The Choi family is willing to pay me 2 billion won for information about the twin security. They're planning to kidnap you, use you as bait. I could warn you or I could help them. Your choice. Oma's hand moved to the small recording device in her clutch, a gift from Juno. You just made this very easy. Within an hour, Kwame was zip-tied to a chair in an abandoned warehouse near Jigalki Market. The twins stood over him while Oma watched from the shadows, her heart aching despite everything. Please, Kwame begged, blood dripping from his split lip. Oma, please. I love you. You love money, Juno corrected coldly, pressing his gun to Kwame's temple. Say the word, Oma. Your past or your future. Oma stepped into the light. She looked at Kwame, the boy she'd dated for 2 years in Accra, who'd promised her forever and delivered nothing but disappointment. Then she looked at Juno and Taehyun, the men who'd taken everything from her and given her the world in return. Let him go, she said finally. But make sure the Choi family knows what happens to people who threaten us. Make sure everyone knows. Juno smiled darkly. As you wish, my queen. 3 weeks later, Oma woke up nauseous. At first, she blamed the spicy tteokbokki from the night before. But when the nausea persisted for 5 days, Taehyun insisted on taking her to their private doctor. The news seemed impossible. Miraculous. Terrifying. You're pregnant, the doctor announced. About 8 weeks along. Oma stared at the ultrasound image, at the tiny bean-shaped shadow that was somehow her child. Their child. Tears streamed down her face as Taehyun pulled her into his arms, his own eyes wet. We did it, he whispered brokenly. We actually did it. Juno stood frozen, staring at the screen like he'd seen a ghost. Then suddenly he was on his knees in front of Oma, his forehead pressed to her still flat stomach, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. That night, they made love with aching tenderness, their hands constantly drifting to her belly, their kisses soft and reverent. And for the first time, Oma understood what it meant to be truly, completely loved. 6 months later, Oma stood before the 5 families of Busouson, visibly pregnant in a crimson dress that hugged her curves. Juno and Taehyun flanked her, their hands intertwined with hers. We're consolidating power, she announced, her voice carrying through the warehouse. One empire. The Kong Empire. And we rule it together, all 3 of us. An older man scoffed. A woman cannot lead. This woman just negotiated a 15 billion won deal with the Japanese Yakuza, Oma interrupted. This woman speaks 4 languages and has a master's degree in international business. This woman carries the heir you've all been waiting for. She placed her hand on her belly. So unless you want to explain to this child why you disrespected their mother, I suggest you fall in line. The vote was unanimous. 1 year later, Oma walked along Gwangali Beach, her daughter Sekyung sleeping peacefully against her chest. The twins walked on either side of her, their hands linked with hers, forming an unbreakable chain. Do you ever regret it? Taehyun asked softly. Signing that contract. Oma looked at her daughter, at the diamond bridge glittering in the distance, at the two men who'd become her entire world. I regret nothing. You gave me a cage, and I made it a kingdom. Juno pressed a kiss to her temple. Our queen of Busan. Our wife, Taehyun added, his voice thick with emotion. Our everything, they said together. Oma smiled, leaning into their warmth. Sometimes the best love stories started with the worst circumstances. Sometimes you had to lose everything to find what you truly needed. And sometimes, just sometimes, three hearts could beat as one. If this story kept you hooked until the end, smash that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all around the world. Until next time, remember that love has no rules, only possibilities.